Hi everyone, I'm Victoria Main here with another episode of TV and Film Focus. My guest today is filmmaker Sam Weston. Sam, thanks for being here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about, you started out as a kid writing fantasy books, and somehow you got to being a filmmaker from there. So can you kind of just give us...
Yeah, so I mean, it's a pretty typical story. Kid grows up watching movies like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, those kinds of things. Reading fantasy books and just falling in love with the whole genre. But very quickly into actually writing these books that honestly are not very good in the first place. I don't even have any drafts of what I had as a kid. But I realized really early on that everything I was writing relied heavily on visuals and sound. So it's just like, oh hey, I'm basically writing scripts, but in prose. I should just write scripts. So that's what I started doing, and then digging a little bit into like how the film industry works, I found out that the director notes that I was writing in the scripts were not okay, and so I was like, okay, so to do this right, I'm going to have to become a fantasy writer and director. So very tall order, and I'm still building toward that, but things are getting closer to where compared to I made that decision like 10 years ago, and finally getting close to that point.
Well, right, because it's a good point that you brought up about putting your notes, into the screenplay.
Yeah.
Whoever ends up directing that film does not necessarily appreciate your very detailed thoughts on what should be seen.
Unless I'm the director.
Unless you're the director, in which case that's your decision.
Yeah. Tarantino has plenty of scripts that are just like these long diatribes in like how the camera is supposed to move and all that, and beautiful 70 millimeter Panavision is clearly written in one of the script for Hateful Eight.
Well, I guess he can do that sort of thing because he's writing and directing, himself.
Yeah.
So now you can put all the notes you want in there.
Or at least that's the hope.
Right.
I still have yet to get to the same point as Tarantino or George Lucas or anybody like that.
Well, right, yeah. None of us are here, but that's okay. We're getting there.
Yeah.
So you have a YouTube channel that's called Aw Sam Weston, right?
Well, that was it's my personal YouTube channel. But no, I've done a few different attempts at YouTube. When I first moved to Duluth, there was Fictosophy, which was basically like the smashing together of fiction and philosophy. I was a really weird kid when I first started doing this stuff. But yeah, so I put a few short films on there, and realized pretty quickly that that I needed to get more of to build more experience. The Fictosophy YouTube shorts basically ended up being my film school. Those are shorts that I made with just people here in Duluth that I happened to meet. One of my earliest connections was with Brandon Cole, and my roommate at the time was working with him at Death Calm, and they kind of became like my into the film industry or the film community here, which at the time was actually really small.
Sure. Well, and Brandon's been a guest on our show, as you know, and talked a lot about Death Calm, and they're doing some fun things. So if people want to see these short films, which are a strange combination of fiction and philosophy, what is your YouTube page?
Well,
what do you call it? Is it Sam Weston?
The YouTube page for that is Fictosophy. Fictosophy.
Okay.
But I don't recommend any of those.
Okay.
Because right now, there's the studio that I've formed, Battlemage Films, has its own YouTube channel, which has much more solid stuff.
Okay, so if you want to look at Sam's stuff, go to Battlemage Films on YouTube. Okay. not fictosophy.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, you could look at either, but
yeah,
I recommend Battlemage.
Well, sometimes it's kind of cool to see people as they develop, you know? I mean,
of
that's
course.
one of the great things about this industry is that we're all learning as we go.
Well, I mean, heck, some of the greats of our time, you know, you look at their earliest short films and you just see like what's you see the things that led to what they are now. I mean, I saw a really awesome video essay by this YouTuber Austin McConnell who you know, talks about the first student film that George Lucas made, and it's this 1 minute thing. He's given a really simple task, just to like take some photos and stitch them together in a story, and he ends up turning it into like this really provocative postmodern like art house piece. Yeah, and he uses the technology that he has available and just completely like goes to new heights with it as a student. So it's like you see like the technology that is developed with Star Wars, or that he develops with Star Wars. You see the beginnings of that in his student film.
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking outside the box, you know, if that's,
of course.
you know, we're all growing, and it's cool. So you did work your way up to a first feature, which you've got in the can, which is called Gleahan and the Knaves of Industry.
You got it right.
And it is a comedy adventure.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so Gleahan is basically the story of an opportunistic jerk who joins the quest of a delusional man who thinks he lives in a fantasy world. You know, and there's a whole bunch of wacky hijinks, and the opportunistic jerk, Mark, played by Kent Dean, you know, goes or is basically coerced by this crime boss to follow Gleahan around, because Gleahan of Eastvale, the hero of Calicut, vanquisher of justice, or vanquisher of the Iron Bulls, champion of justice.
Okay.
He has been.
I love fantasy, I really do.
He has been on the case of this crime boss for quite a while, and it's causing problems. So. Yeah, anyway, but yeah, we shot it in Duluth back in the winter of 2017, 2018. You know, super low budget. You know, we raised a few $1,000s. I managed to inflate that a little bit with a really timely investment in Bitcoin, oddly enough. And yeah, we just kind of went, you know, we made it all work. It shouldn't have worked. I made a goal when I started that back in so it was 2017, Duluth Superior Film Festival. I was watching Nick Hansen's feature, Salatium, and I was like, hey, I can do something. It gave me a little bit of inspiration to make to make something on a really low budget, because people had been telling me for a while, hey, you need to make a feature. So I basically just kind of went ahead and I was like, okay, I'm going to make this. It's going to get into Duluth Superior Film Festival 2018, and people told me I was crazy, and I definitely was. Let's be clear. This should not have worked, but somehow we managed to turn it around. You know, I got the script out. Didn't have nearly enough drafts. But you know, we got it. My friend and roommate Don Milliken ended up playing the title character Gleahan, because he read the script and he was like, "This is me distilled." And so we just rolled with it. Everything just fell into place in ways that should not have worked, but it just did.
Yeah. So, and you know, a timely investment in Bitcoin is really probably something you don't
usually see those stories.
No, that's not.
Yeah, no, but so I think what's the most baffling to me is the fact that I set a really lofty goal and still managed to actually make it, to pull it off. I mean, you know, it got accepted into Duluth Superior Film Festival 2018. It premiered there. So you know, it was literally a year from concept to completion. Which, again, way too short for a film, but somehow we made it work.
Yeah.
It almost like it mirrors the plot of the movie.
Yeah, well, yeah, a quest. You were on a quest.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
You could say that.
Yeah.
So, okay, one of the other things that you're involved in around town in our little burgeoning film and television community here is the Arrowhead Filmmakers Association.
Mm-hmm.
So you are a co-founder of that.
Yeah.
So go ahead and tell us a little bit about what some of what was you was founded by you and Brandon Cole.
Yeah. So Brandon and I had been friends for a good chunk of time. You know, we gave each other notes on our shorts, and he was present on the set of Glahan for a good several shooting days. And you know, he and I basically, we realized that if the film community is really going to take off the way that we want it to, you know, because I can't speak for him, but I don't want to have to move to LA. I don't even want to move to the cities because it's too much. I would much rather be here in the place that, or the places that I know. I like rural Minnesota, or, you know, heck, this is the biggest small town around, so it's kind of, yeah. But anyway, you know, we just kind of realized that this whole area has that perfect blend of arts and ingenuity and just, you know, really hard work. That, like, hey, there should be a film industry here. Why isn't there? You know, and what can we do to build that and bring that here? So, you know, we got to talking about, you know, what about a cooperative that, you know, rather than a farmer's co-op that, you know, takes, like the, you know, crops and sells them on the market for the farmers, you know, to make everything easier. Instead, it would be a filmmakers cooperative that would, you know, take the films that we, that are made here and gets them out into the world. The vision has since changed from there. I can't really speak to exactly what that is because, you know, one of the things that happened by design was, you know, a whole bunch of voices came in and were like, hey, here's what we could, you know, do to make this work. And so now, you know, it's not just one or two voices, it's the entire community, or a good chunk of the community at least. People who want to be involved are involved. But yeah, so does that answer your question?
Yeah, so the organization, I know that it's a great organization, and it's still kind of morphing and becoming what it's going to become.
They just finalized the bylaws.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a thing that has to be done.
It is. We didn't realize that it had to be done, but it did.
Yeah.
So now it is.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure that as the industry develops here, which I believe it will, you know, the role of the Arrowhead Filmmakers Association will morph right along with everything else.
Oh, of course.
So
well, and you know, we didn't expect Catalyst would be as big as it was. I mean, we founded, or we first started talking about the Arrowhead Filmmakers Association, you know, back in you know, at Duluth Superior Film Festival 2018. You know, shortly after Glahan premiered, you know, just to like capture the spirit of what had been growing. And then, you know, just a few months later, Catalyst, you know, Philip comes in and announces that Catalyst is coming, and it changes the entire landscape.
Yeah.
And you know, actually, I think it's advanced our plans a good probably 5 years.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt. You know, almost across the board, the guests I've had on this show have talked about how Catalyst has really reinvigorated the community and really gave everybody a shot in the arm that we didn't know we wanted, but we apparently did, you know.
Well, you know, and my goal as a filmmaker, you know, again, I don't want to move to LA. I want to stay here because this is, you know, Minnesota is a perfect place to film fantasy movies and to make these things happen. And also, I don't want to have to relearn a lot of those social cues that I have learned. You know, I'm autistic, and so I had to specifically learn a lot of the things that that other people just, you know, pick up naturally. And so, you know, the Minnesota mannerisms are very different from the coastal mannerisms of New York or LA.
Sure.
And so, you know, it's so much easier to be on the same wavelength as people.
Yeah.
So,
well, and let's face it, you know, those of us who live here in Duluth love living in Duluth. Yeah. So, you know, I don't particularly want to move to LA full time either.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So speaking of that, and kind of our growing film and TV community here, it sounds like, you've had some timely assistance with your projects as you were doing them. So do you feel like the film community here is supportive of each other? And
Oh, absolutely. Aside from a couple bad actors that we don't really pay much mind to, the whole film community really does come together. I mean, I'm really excited for Bittersweet, and I've been talking with back and forth with Clara, for example, about just basically sending excited messages for every time they wrap a weekend of production.
Yeah.
Brandon has taken. Brandon Cole has taken a page, is actually, like I hear, he's taking a page out of my book with Gleahan, and the feature that they're working on finally, they're going to be doing a similar thing and shooting on weekends like we did with Gleahan. And it's just, we're all learning from each other and lifting each other up, and it's, yeah.
Well, you need that because, which brings me to something that I always like to talk with people about, which is, okay, so we've got this, growing film community. We've got a lot of creative people, hardworking. We've got a great environment in which to create things. We've got Catalyst that just came in. So where do you see this all going for Duluth? What's the if you can look down the road and say, this is what I'd like it to be in 3 years or 5 years or whatever, what would you like it to be?
Well, I can tell you what I would want it to be. Is a hub for film and TV. I think that we have all these creative voices, not just in Duluth but in all of Minnesota. If Duluth becomes a creative hub similar to like Austin in Texas has become for down there. Or Atlanta has become for Georgia. We have everything. We have all the ingredients we need, and this is something that quite a few people have talked about. But we have all the ingredients we need to make a really unique film landscape here in Duluth.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Basically, right now, it's just a matter of we need money. We need people to throw or to throw their hat into the ring and actually say, yes, I will support films that are a little bit on the bigger side. Whether that's actually paying, or basically we just need enough money to pay crew, work to work on visual effects. It would be nice if directors could have enough that they can work on this full time. And get films out there in that actually make some money. Because what Duluth really needs right now is an export. Because all we have right now is our industries that bring people in. We've got schools, we've got hospitals, and we've got tourism. And all three of those rely on bringing people in, but it doesn't actually rely on sending things out. Iron mining is on the decline because we're simply running out of iron. And I support the miners out there, with what they have been doing for the last 100 or so years. But even so, the reality is we're running out of resources.
Yeah.
And as people have said, creativity is an unlimited resource. Nobody's going to run out of ideas.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So that would be a great, that could be our export.
Exactly. And that, honestly, that's actually the core of what brought the Arrowhead Filmmakers Co-op, as it was called back then, to fruition was, hey, let's bring an export to Duluth. I mean, that's, for me at least, that's the end goal. It's just all the intermediary steps.
Right. So, and so the Filmmakers Association is still working on that, and they'll get to be a player, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
And of course, the Catalyst folks, Philip is working very hard to bring in those other pieces with the investor piece and the because Duluth. Philip and I just had a conversation about this, that Duluth has invested in the arts world,
which is great.
Yeah,
but they don't see film as art.
Well, not quite yet, I think, and it's funny because I think in some ways film and television is much more of a businessy business
Yeah.
than theater and visual arts and music and that sort of thing.
It's almost like people want the arts. They almost want all artists to be struggling artists.
Right. Key component is starvation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which I don't see. I think that's a really disappointing view of the world. But yeah, no,
so,
I mean,
yeah, it would be great if people could actually make a living creating.
Yeah, exactly.
In this way.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, if you talk to, for example, any film composers, they will say that if you want to write music and you want to make money at it, write for film music, because the fact of the matter is there is money to be made, a living to be made working in film and TV, and it allows people to actually practice their craft, while also not starving.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Because, even artists got to eat, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay, well, so let's talk about, we've kind of gone through the point to bring us to where we are now. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about what your next project is coming up.
So,
your next feature.
Yeah. So this is an exclusive.
An exclusive.
So
you heard it here first.
Yeah. So my next film is called Wizards of the Underworld. It's kind of an urban noir fantasy thing. It's set in like it's set in a different world. A fantasy world constructed, all of that. But it just happens to have a very similar look to what we've got here. Very convenient. Yeah. But anyway, so it's the story of a woman who is she's an investigator for in a city where magic is banned. People know how to use magic, but it's not legal. And so it's her job to investigate crimes involving magic. Through a turn of events, she ends up having to investigate the death of her husband, who was equivalent to the chief of police. And so it leads to a whole bunch of twists and turns that I can't really get into a whole lot because of spoilers. But,
sure.
So right now the script, I've got, I'm working on the third draft right now. It's out for review among some people that I trust to get their opinions from. And I'm still waiting on their opinions, but it's basically just right now I'm basically just looking for in the very early phases of pre-production. So I've done a bit of a mock budget. The numbers here are not final by any means, but I think it's probably going to cost about $1 million to make, which is significantly more than anything that anybody here has made or has filmed with independently. So that's going to be the big challenge.
Sure.
Where Glayahan, the challenge was, hey, I got to make a feature film and I have no resources. Let's do it. This one is going to have to be, hey, I got to make a feature film, but we're going to need a lot of resources. How do we get those resources?
Yeah.
So there's a few people that I'm reaching out to, but it's the big mountain that's going to have to be climbed for this is raising that $1 million.
So is there any way? So you've done a budget where you're going to have to raise $1 million.
And that's for cast, crew, everything from pre-production all the way through post. Okay. Basically everything except for distribution.
Okay. Well, and certainly by industry standards, that's not a huge budget.
It's not a huge budget. That's the thing.
No.
But unfortunately, because of the way Duluth is right now, it is.
Well, raising $1 million for any project is tough.
Well, when $10,000 is a big budget, and the highest budget movie that's ever independently gone through here is less than $100,000, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So hopefully a film like this can also spur other films to to learn from whatever mistakes I happen to make, and we can get more traction for the community here.
Sure. So you're on your third draft of the script, and you're getting some feedback. In In a perfect world, if you raise your money and when would you be in production on this film?
Oh, I've actually thought about this quite a bit. In a perfect world, I'd like to shoot in the fall, but that's not feasible at all. Unless we get the money right now. No, so what's more realistic is it's going to be probably either next spring or next fall. Next fall is I don't want that to happen, but that might actually be the case.
Sure.
But it's more a matter of how soon can we get this out? How soon can we make this? I still want this to be as good quality as we can make it.
Yep.
But the reality is that the sooner we get really good stuff out into the world from Duluth, the better for all of Duluth.
Yeah. Well, it would be great if we had sort of a central, what I'd love to see is a central fundraising money, kind of the money team, right?
Yeah, that would be a really great thing to have.
Yeah, and I think actually, Philip is looking sort of.
Philip is definitely going after the higher dollar investors. He did manage to raise what was it, 500,000, $1 million, something like that for.
He had to raise some money for Catalyst, yeah.
But it's just we.
But everybody can go on their own and
Sure.
do a combination of grants and GoFundMe's and private investors and all of those things.
Side note. If we rely on grants too much, that says a lot about it. It sends the wrong message, I think. It sends the message that, again, that you have to be a starving artist to be a filmmaker. I really don't like how much people rely on grants. I don't like how much people rely on crowdfunding. I think that each of them has their place, but they should not be the main way that we fund films. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping to change with this.
Okay. Well, let's come up with a better way, Sam.
Yeah.
Find a better way.
Yeah, I'm going to be working on it.
Okay.
If any investors are interested in upstart young filmmaker, battlemagefilms.com. My email address is on there.
All right. Well, reach out to Sam if you've got an idea for how to help with fundraising, and noble goal indeed.
Yeah.
So thanks for being here, Sam.
Thank
Talking
you.
about this stuff.
Yeah.
Next time, we'll see you here to talk about some more local film and television stuff. Thanks for being here.